Nope.
In retrospect, it started at the very beginning, as I was setting the foundation. For the previous 3 weeks, I had been selling off my possessions on eBay. My flat screen TV, my PS4, my desktop computer. Anything that might fetch for more than $100 bill was sold, and the profits were added to the funds for the Ark, my new project. A 100% sustainable, self-sufficient tiny home to be built on my parcel in far upstate New York. As I said, it began with the foundation. The slab I poured on that first weekend was modest, only a few hundred square feet, but it was truly the foundation for everything I wanted to achieve. I stayed the weekend, camping out in my van, waiting for the concrete to dry and set. But I mostly spent that time exploring the land I now proudly owned. I visited the creek, gauging its depth, looking for blinds, locating game trails, and the like. When I woke on Monday, I returned to my site to examine the slab, and was a bit baffled as to what I found. While the concrete had set and hardened perfectly, without cracks and retaining its structural uniformity, it had developed a strange pattern on the surface since Saturday. It was covered in flowing, variegated patterns like a sand dune or the skin of a burn victim from one corner to the other. At the time, I chalked it up to an effect caused by the wind, and accepted that the foundation of my home would boast a natural flowing pattern. At the time, it seemed appropriate, even pleasing. But that was before I was forced to re-examine my definition of natural. The following 3 months were fraught with similar incidents of high strangeness during each phase of construction. At the very start of framing, I woke one morning to find that half of my 2x4s had seemingly grown deep black knotting since they were delivered. I had taken care to inspect the load before the truck departed, for both structural issues as well as warping. There had been no inconsistencies. Yet, in the cold light of dawn, half my stock was fecund with deep root black knotting, making most of them all but useless. I decided that my tiredness had made me careless. It was the only possible explanation. I was so exhausted when the truck arrived that I must have inspected only a portion of the delivery. I forgave my lapse in attentiveness and picked myself back up to continue my work. Day after day, week after week, materials went missing. Twice I located the stolen items. Exhausted from the almost constant setbacks, I had lain on my back, on the ground, in front of my now framed tiny house, to stare at the sky and try to regain my enthusiasm. I spotted something strange, high in the pines above me. A vibrant decoration of red and yellow spiraling around the tops of the trees surrounded my plot. Further inspection solved the mystery. It was my wiring. The wiring that was meant to connect my solar panels to the battery storage and then finally feed the current into the house. I had been making excuses for the strange incidents plaguing my work for well over a month now. But this was beyond any rational explanation I could come up with. How had 2 full spools of wiring ended up wrapped in intricate loops 30 feet up in 6 of the nearby trees? A practical joke? Someone intentionally trying to slow or stop my work? I certainly wasn't close to anyone with a sense of humor as twisted as that. Never mind someone who had the interest or the wherewithal to pull it off. In truth, I had less friends that I could count on one hand. I both like it that way and find that it further motivated me to do something meaningful with my life, to stake a claim and live in harmony with the natural world out here. Growing my own food, hunting and fishing, reading, writing, exploring the benefits of solitude in a time when the rest of the world was only furthering its inhuman entanglement. Yet here I was, in the middle of nowhere, and still being interfered with. Regardless, I would not stop. This was my dream, my focus. And when facing an obstacle, you only have 3 choices: go over them, under them, or through them. I undertook all of those paths to reach my goal before winter took hold. I gathered rope and learned some knot tying in order to ascend the trees and retrieve my wiring. I placed another order to replenish my lumber supply. I chopped wood to replace the stakes that had gone missing, meant to mark the edges of my garden. It was especially important that I start my cold weather crops as soon as possible. I spent hours scraping dried mud and clay that I found coating my triple pane windows and doors. And near the end of the project, I spent days reattaching hundreds of roofing tiles that had been removed and scattered throughout the woods, some as far as 50 feet into the thick forest. But now, finally, against the strangest of odds, my work is complete. Friday was the last night I would spend in my barren suburban apartment complex. The last night I would miss sleep due to the sounds of screwing from the floor below and children tearing around from above. I would finally be separated from that cycle of endless, mindless propagation of which I had never chosen to take part. And here I am. It's 3 a.m., and I'm huddled in a ball behind my small couch, draining the last of the day's solar power reserves to keep my phone charged to write this. The cacophony outside started right at midnight, causing me to fly from my bed to the main room. At first, I thought that it must have been a bear based on the incredible scale of the noise it was making. Black bears are not unheard of in this area, especially this deep into the wilderness, and it made sense that it might see my little outpost as an opportunity for an easy meal. But then I noticed that the sound was coming from all 4 corners simultaneously. Scraping and tearing noises from the east side, scratching and screeching from the west, and I could see the windows rattling on the north and south sides as my new home was being assaulted by a thunderstorm of incredible magnitude. But there was no storm. No rain or thunder, at least. Just a little box I had built in the deep woods. A little box that was my life's work, from which I can now hear the siding being torn asunder. I only built up the will to stand and look out of the windows to see my assailants once. What little I did see was more than enough. A flurry of activity. The window cracking. Greasy fur and rubbery suckers and horrors of biology unintelligible to my simple mind. So here I sit, behind the love seat, cradling my phone, trying to comfort myself in its sane technological light, in its connection to the outside world, where things are dull but predictable. Bastions of perverse humanity, yes, but also bastions against the unknown. Please, world out there, help me. Tell me how to stand against this chaos. What moves can I make? What can I try? What is happening here, and how can I stop it? I need you. I need someone, some ideas, some knowledge that will help me. Otherwise, without your help, I'm just a man, alone in a box in the deep woods, assaulted by the very thing I was working towards, and quite possibly looking at my last stand against the horrors of the wild. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this 2-part story. If you did, you know what to do. Take that like button and just pull it up into the trees, 30 feet into the trees, and hang that. You know what? That's pretty dark. I'm going to stop right there before this video gets flagged. Shout out to the author of this story, DM Blackwell. My guy, your stories are awesome, and your name lends itself to a horror writer, so honestly, keep up the great work. I'm very much looking forward to bringing this story home next week, no pun intended. But until then, remember to stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you in the next video.